Paper. For this chapter, we're going to talk briefly about paper, as it is a very important piece of material that I think can make or break a drawing. For my drawings, I do need paper that can withstand ink. That's very important to me. But that doesn't mean that the paper that I am using is necessarily very expensive. There's a bit of a range, there's a bit of a spectrum there. I'm gonna start with the cheapest option that you can find. Hopefully you can find. The first option that I'm going to give you is, and this is what I use quite a lot, it's simply printer paper. Printer paper that you can commonly find for printers. It is very cheap. You can buy it in bulk. Simply put, it's awesome paper just to practice, and for the most part it handles ink well. It doesn't handle water very well, keep this in mind, so you're not going to be able to do washes with it. You're just going to be able to do drawings using the brush pen, right? For example, just for practice, just running. You can see that it absorbs the ink rather quickly. And because it absorbs the ink rather quickly, there's very limited risk of the ink smudging. As you go along, you see I'm touching on the paper, the ink is not smudging. The paper is made itself for fast drying because it is printer paper. So it makes it ideal for the purposes of practice, maybe just for a quick sketch. It also handles graphite very well. You can still do the smudge technique with the brush pen if needed, but printer paper you can commonly find in and here's another thing, because it's printer paper, it's not traditionally associated with art paper. It is much more affordable. I think whenever you go to an art store, the prices just jump up out of nowhere because it's art material, and it needs to be expensive. But yeah, printer paper, super awesome. I really like using it for doodling, for just trying out ideas, see what can be done, sketching. I'm not sure if I have any example sketches here in printer paper. I don't believe I have handy, but trust me, a lot of my ideas first flourish on printer paper. And then, because, like I said, it's just something that you can use for practice, it handles a lot of colors well. So for example, red, let's say I'm brainstorming, I don't know, an idea for an illustration. You can see that it's taking the red rather well. It's working quite nicely. So just doing here a mannequin, and we're gonna get to the mannequin part, of course, but you can see that it just absorbs the ink super well. It makes it ideal for some practice. And then because I have this, let's say, just doing a quick mannequin. So I have a very quick mannequin here, and it it's made in red just for me to think about, okay, what can I do with this character? Is the character maybe sitting in a couch? I can take another brush. I can take a pen as well. And because of the low cost of the paper, you feel comfortable with just making errors and iterating on different approaches, seeing what works, right? Which I think is very important. I can even layer 2 colors. And the paper will just take it. For some simple brainstorming, tremendous paper, really. And you would think no, because of the price, right? But this is my go-to whenever I'm just sketching a bit, whenever I'm just trying to throw a couple ideas and see what sticks, right? So in this case, the person is so immediately from the sketch, I could just think, okay, if the person is sitting, maybe then I can just raise this part over here so that maybe the hand is resting on this, something like that. That's the whole idea. You want paper that you can quickly have a whole bunch of 20, 30, 40 pages and you don't feel concerned about throwing them in the waste, really. Then you can just, for this drawing, try again. And for this sketch here, I would just correct this part of the chair that I was thinking of, maybe have it here. And I would iterate on this until I find something that I'm comfortable with or that I want to use for a drawing, right? Or an idea, or I can... The way I work is that sometimes I will prepare these doodles of characters that I then can take and use for a final drawing. That's very common here in my sketchbook, where I have these characters that you see here. They were probably sketched before. I remember this character here I had already sketched before and thrown some ideas on how to do it, because I was debating how to do the eyes here. It's a bit different than what I usually do with the full line work. So it's all about iteration, seeing what works, and having paper that can reliably serve the purpose of being a vehicle for your sketches. However, of course, if you wanna, and then we come to the next part, if you wanna have your sketches all neat and proper, maybe in a sketchbook, then yeah, buy a sketchbook. That would be my recommendation. My recommendation is that you try mixed media paper for your sketchbook, especially if you're dealing with ink, so mixed media. That would be my recommendation. I can recommend you for cheap, I think it's a fairly priced item, Canson mixed media paper. It's a fair price. This sheet that you see here, this is Canson mixed media. And you can see that, not sure if the camera is capturing this, but it takes a bit more time to dry than the printer paper. But I do want to highlight one thing here is that it does take a bit more time to dry, but the lines are a bit more expressive on this paper, and that's why I know. But that's something important to stress is that a lot of paper actually makes it so that your lines end up becoming a bit more expressive, right? Printer paper has that drawback. Your lines are not necessarily very expressive. They're limited by the fact that the paper doesn't have a whole lot of texture, doesn't have a whole lot of grit to it. I don't know very well paper texture, and that's a part that I don't command very well, full disclosure here. But for example, this Canson mixed media paper, just because it has a bit more, slightly more grit to it, you can see that the lines are a bit more expressive. And because the paper is a bit more expressive, your final drawing does end up looking a bit better, I have to say, because you have a bit more control, because the paper is effectively breaking the flow of ink, helping you navigate and helping you think better. So I don't know what type of chair I'm doing here. And it's because I'm actually in the midst of a home renovation, so I've been seeing a lot of chairs. So maybe the chair does something like this. I don't know, we are spending so much time on chairs, but now I'm just engrossed in the drawing. But yeah, Canson mixed media paper. It's a nice, affordable option. So Canson. Canson mixed media paper, a nice, affordable option that I'll put like a photo of what it looks like, the piece of paper on it, and it can go from very small to big. So this one is actually a very big sheet. It's a bit more expensive because you pay for the size, right? But yeah, I fully recommend you that you try this paper, especially if you're on a budget, but you want something that's a bit better than printer paper. Printer paper is not necessarily the best for preservation. It's more for practice, right? And you can buy a nice sketchbook with Canson mixed media paper. And the thing with Canson mixed media paper is that it will also accept very well alcohol markers. It's a thicker paper, so you can apply alcohol markers confidently. Not this one, because this one is almost about to break. But yeah, this one. And you can see that there's also very little, I'm not going to be able to show you, but there's very little bleed to the other side of the paper. because it's a thicker paper. It's not necessarily the best paper for marker, but it works quite nicely. It works quite nicely if you're in a pinch and you just want to color your drawing. It is a bit so some of the ink from the brush pen got carried away in this drawing, but that's to be expected because I didn't let it sit for some time, which is important when talking about brush pens. You do need the ink to rest for a bit before you can go ahead and put the second layer. And by the second layer, I mean, of course, the alcohol marker, right? It's best to wait for a bit before for the ink to be fully dry. So we talked about a cheap option for practice, which is printer paper. Then we spoke about Canson mixed media paper, which is still an affordable option, and especially if you're looking for a sketchbook to have. They are easy to come by, at least in Europe. I don't want to stress that. But Canson, I believe, is a global brand, so you should be able to find it as well. Then we start to go into, okay, you want perhaps a neater looking sketchbook. At that stage, you start going perhaps and start considering perhaps a Moleskine sketchbook. I'm currently using this one. This is a small Moleskine sketchbook, but you can find it in a whole lot of sizes. And the thing with Moleskine sketchbooks is that, first of all, they are expensive, but the paper, generally speaking, is of good quality. It is of good quality. I don't like so much the watercolor sketchbooks that they have. I'm not a fan, but the main ones just for drawing, they're good enough. They are a solid, sturdy option that you can take with you whenever you are. Plus, they also come in a variety of sizes. So this one is a big one. This one is a big one. And we also have, this one is a small one, and we also have a big one here. So this one is from a special edition, whatever. You don't need to buy the special editions, of course. And you can see that this one is also blank, but I did try here a couple of ideas before. Again, same thing. I actually use this one for brainstorm a couple ideas on characters that I might want to incorporate in upcoming drawings. So this one, here you can see that I'm trying to navigate to do something with this hand here. So this is an idea, maybe put the hand like this. So then I debated, okay, what if I were to add an hat, right? And maybe change the posture of the end. I'm also here struggling a bit here with this angle of the face, looking from down. It's a paper also to practice. You can use it as a paper to practice. A couple of practice sketches here as well. Couple of practice sketches. Here's some ideas as well that I never materialized. Here's another sketch as well. And the thing with this type of paper, the paper that Moleskine has, is that it just behaves quite nicely for ink. I'm not like the best. I don't like necessarily to use Copic markers on Moleskine paper because they have a bit of a creamy tone, and that's also something to highlight, is that Moleskines have a creamy tone to it. They're not the paper is not completely white, bone white. It's more of a cream color. So if that's something that you don't like, consider not buying a Moleskine, because for the most part their papers have this cream tone to it. I'm not sure if they have like a completely white version of their paper that you can go to the store and buy. So keep that in mind if you are in the market for a Moleskine sketchbook. Their paper has a creamy tone to it. But yeah, it works quite nicely for illustration, for sketching, and for having with you. Plus, it's a nice cover. It's a sturdy book. It just protects your book if it's in your bag, if you're traveling out and about. Plus, it has the advantage of being able to lie for the most part completely flat. That's something that you also want to look into when you are out and about for getting a sketchbook. It needs to be comfortable to hold, and it needs to be comfortable in the sense that it can be laid completely flat on the table 180%. If by some chance the sketchbook cannot be held flat, it's just a nuisance to open. It's a nuisance to use your left hand or right hand, depending if you are right-handed or left-handed. It has to be blocked holding the book, you know, like this. It's not comfortable for anyone. You want a book that you can have flat. There's a brand, a Japanese brand called Midori, if I'm not mistaken. I have a couple of sketchbooks from them. They're a bit more exotic, but they can be found very easily if you are in the UK, for example. Their whole thing is that their sketchbook lies completely flat on the table. They are very comfortable to use. It's just that for the most part, I was only able to find paper a bit thinner for my liking. I prefer thicker paper. On that sense, Moleskine does deliver thick paper, and I use these fairly often. Another thing that I'm using right now, but I don't recommend that you use because of the price, is Mont Blanc sketchbook. These are made in Italy. They have a leather cover. The paper quality, it's white. That's why I bought it, because the paper is white. It's a very white paper, and plus it also can be laid flat horizontally. Yeah, I bought this book. I have a couple of Mont Blanc sketchbooks. So, for example, this is the one that I've been using for the past year and a half. Has a lot of drawings on it. Some still incomplete. Almost complete the sketchbook. Once it's complete, I do have a new one here. This one is completely new, completely unused. But I'm not sure if I'll use it again. I do have it as emergency, because it's quite hard to find these books blank. Super hard. You need to go to the boutique to get it, which is a bit annoying. Sometimes online they also have it, and these come in different sizes. There's also an A4 size. The A4 size, the paper is slightly thicker, but I ended up just using the small one since 2023 because it just fits nicely inside the bag like this for traveling. Just fits nicely. It's always there. Things I don't like particularly about the book is that it says Mont Blanc here at the end of each sheet. So sometimes I do obscure it with a drawing, but sometimes it's impossible or it's just there. So I'm still debating what I will do once all these drawings are complete and it comes time to maybe, I don't know, publish a book or do a print, I don't know. But the book is almost complete, and yeah. At the time of writing, I'm focusing on this one. At the time of recording, I'm focusing on this one. Yeah. But I don't recommend that you buy a Mont Blanc sketchbook. It's very expensive. It's probably the most expensive paper that I have, and it's not for the price you start getting into what is it that you can actually buy of excellent quality. And when I speak of excellent quality, it's when I speak of excellent quality, watercolor sketchbooks or watercolor paper from the big brand, the major brands, Arches or Fabriano, or there's another one. I forget the name, but one thing you will notice with watercolor paper is that it's expensive, and it's more expensive if you go 100% cotton. This one is 100% cotton. Watercolor paper comes in different paper roughness, right? And also different paper composition. So not every paper is 100% cotton. If it's not 100% cotton, then it's considerably more cheaper to buy. So be mindful. 100% cotton paper does mean that it will last longer, it's more resistant, plus I think it does help the tone of your drawing. It does help the lines just look beautiful with a pen. And before I move on, I just want to say that I use for drawing hot pressed paper, and I'll put an image here, bling, here of the different types of watercolor paper that exist. I use hot pressed for drawing, hot pressed paper. The lines just are beautiful. You do have to increase the flow of your ink for it to work really well. So your brush pen does need to be loaded with ink. Not loaded, but with a bit more ink than usual. But the lines are just incredible, incredible. You do need to wait for the paper to dry though. You do need to wait for the paper to dry. Because of its price, and one thing, it's because it takes some time to dry, you can much more, it allows you more flexibility if you want to use the ink drag technique. Because of its nature as premium expensive paper, watercolor paper, it's not very suitable for sketching. It's not. This here is a bad example. It's expensive paper. You should only use, my recommendation, unless you have the money to splurge, then you go. But my recommendation is to use this paper for a drawing that you are confident on, or a drawing that you want to do and you have this idea and you want it to be done in paper that's of good quality, and you also want the drawing to be expressive with the lines and everything, plus you want some control. And again, this is watercolor paper, hot pressed. And there's different brands that offer hot pressed paper. So Fabriano, like I said, there's also Canson. This is also, if you see hot pressed paper, 100% cotton, 100% cotton. Is it capturing on the camera? Here. So 100% cotton paper. This is also very expensive. Arches does offer an option that's a bit more affordable, which is this one. Try to look for this one. It's also, I believe, 100% cotton, but because the sheets are not glued together, like they have one that you probably saw already. I have it here as well, but I put an image so that you can see the sheets come glued together. That one is very expensive. This one is a cheaper offer that they offer, and I put cheap on quotation marks. It's just cheaper. It's not cheap. But again, rule of thumb. It just applies. The paper that I prefer to use if I have the option is 100% 100% cotton watercolor paper with a hot pressed texture. However, if in the rare occasion that I want to use watercolors to paint, my recommendation is to use cold pressed paper, not hot pressed. Cold pressed paper just makes the ink work so much better, flow so much better. So be mindful of that. Be mindful of that when making the choice. If you want to color your drawing with watercolor, first use a waterproof brush or use a pigment-based ink like this one that I have here, Indian ink. Just use Indian ink if you want to color, and potentially prefer to use or make the choice to use cold pressed paper. You can still color with hot pressed paper, still works. It's just that gradation is much harder to employ because the texture is flat, so the ink doesn't travel so well. The watercolor doesn't travel so well. Yeah, it just looks, gradients, it just looks so much better in cold pressed paper. This is important. Yeah, I'm not sure if there's much more to talk about regarding paper. At the end of the day, it's a very natural expression of yourself of which paper you prefer to use. If you have the disposable income for it, try different papers, see what works for you. I think this is what I'm sharing is what works for you, for me, and some general recommendations. But definitely do try, if you have the option, to try out different papers. Maybe your art store has loose sheets that you can try on, that you can just buy one sheet of. In Europe, I can tell you, for example, Canson does offer that option a lot. You can just buy one sheet of paper, Arches as well, but your reality might be different depending on your country. But here you can buy one sheet of paper just to try at home. Cardboard paper, for example, also works very well. Craft paper for brush work, and it is on the more cheaper side as well. Craft paper, yeah, the choice of paper is very much a choice of your taste and what you prefer to use on a day-to-day basis, what you have readily available, what you can stock up, yeah, and what you feel comfortable in for practice in disposing of or having it readily available. Of course, when I say practice, if you prefer digital, you might be in the wrong course, but if you prefer digital or you like to draw digital as well, you can just skip the whole printer paper thing and draw straight on the iPad or whatever and use that for practice, and then you don't waste paper. That's also an option that you can consider as well. Yeah, the main takeaway is that paper really makes the brush strokes sing. This is very important. It just gives, the right paper will give so much character to a line that the choice, I feel it's very important, a very important choice to make. Yeah, that's it for the paper part. Now we're going to start discussing the basics of illustration. See you in a bit.